What is up, guys? Matt O'Leary back with another video. Excited to get into this one and talk about Sauce Gardner's appearance on the New Heights podcast with Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce. It's a really great podcast. I really got into it right around the Super Bowl, which was obviously a big time for that show as both brothers were playing against each other in the Super Bowl, but wanted to tune into today's episode because they were having Sauce Gardner on, and since he is a New York Jet and since I cover the New York Jets, I wanted to talk about the most interesting points that he brought up on that show. So the interview starts out, they're talking about the NFL draft, and Sauce never really felt that the Houston Texans were going to draft him. They ended up taking Derek Stingley, 3rd overall. Thank you very much, Houston. But he didn't really mention them as a realistic option for him because of the scheme fit. He said that he prefers man coverage, and while the Jets aren't full man coverage, they obviously play a little bit more than what Houston does, which is a lot of zone. So that never was really something that crossed his mind. He said as it got closer to the draft, he felt like the Jets were going to take him at 4, which there were a lot of people who felt that way as the draft was inching closer. He also met with the New York Giants, but he didn't make it to pick 5, and they ended up going with Kayvon Thibodeau and then Evan Neal a few picks after that. I forget if it was pick 7 or 9, somewhere around there. Sauce said his rookie season goal was to be the defensive rookie of the year, which he obviously hit, but he talks about when he was speaking to the media before the season, and he talked about wanting to be the defensive rookie of the year, which obviously makes sense. It's his first year as he's a rookie, but he also wanted to be a Pro Bowler and All Pro, and they kind of looked at him like, you know, pump the brakes, kid, and he hit all 3. So kudos to him for being able to do that. It just shows how really special of a player he is, and how lucky the Jets are to have him. Sauce Gardner also mentions his first text to Aaron Rodgers, and that he texts Aaron Rodgers, which is, I mean, come on. He's coming. He's going to be a New York Jet. But his first text was no context, no nothing, just the picture of him in the cheese head. And Aaron Rodgers is like, LOL, how did you get this? And then he goes into the story about how the cheese head ended up on him. Jet fans took it from a Packers fan and then tossed it to Sauce Gardner, who put it on, and then Alan Lazard knocked it off his head, and now Alan Lazard and Sauce Gardner are teammates. Great story, really a lot of fun, and it's kind of, I think it's hilarious anyway that was his first text that he ended up sending to Aaron Rodgers. Naturally, they asked him about Darrelle Revis, which obviously he spent some time with Darrelle at the facility, and Darrelle is one of the best cornerbacks in league history, and he was a member of the Jets and drafted by the Jets, so the connection is obvious there, and he pretty much said that his best advice, the best advice that Darrelle gave him was you could do anything you set your mind to, and that he appreciates when people say, like Sauce Island, because that's the comparison to Revis Island, and he says, I appreciate that because, of how good Darrelle was, but he prefers the covered in sauce instead, because one, he wants to be an individual, and I get that, and it wasn't like in a cocky way. He wasn't saying like, oh, I'm better than Revis or anything like that. He obviously respects him, and that came across in the interview. He just wants to be his own person. And he said, and from a competitive nature, he wants to be better than Darrelle Revis. And if he gets to that, that's fantastic. That would be phenomenal. And I'm rooting for him to be better. And then he even said himself, like, I want the guys after me to come in with the mindset that they want to be better than me. It's all about, the competition and trying to get better. So I like that. I thought that was a good answer from our guy Sauce. What I found interesting as well, Travis Kelce called Sauce Gardner the best cornerback in the league, which is just insane to me that the Jets have the best cornerback in the league and how good he was as a rookie. It's awesome. And something that Sauce Gardner says is you have to have that confidence. The confidence is key at the cornerback position. And I think there's a fine line between confidence and cocky. But when Sauce Gardner speaks, he comes across as very confident, but in a reserved way. He's not crazy loud about it. Like, he'll talk, but it doesn't come off as brash to me. I don't know. Maybe you guys feel differently, and you can let me know in the comments if you do. But he's saying, like, look, you have to have that mindset because it's the toughest position. And if you don't, that's when you're going to get burned. Both he and Jason Kelce agreed that Sauce is the best nickname for any player in the NFL. And I'm kind of right there. I think it is. There's some other good ones. They mentioned Cheetah for Tyreek Hill, Jay Jettas for Justin Jefferson. There's some good ones, but to me, I really love the Sauce nickname, and I think that's just amazing. They told him that he has to be the defensive player of the year this year. That's what he's gunning for. And then he said MVP. A quarterback's never won an MVP. It's going to be extremely unlikely that he wins MVP, but that's the kind of bar he sets for himself. He's obviously an extremely hard worker, and that's the bar that he wants to hit for this Jets team in 2023. It's funny, they asked him also if he hates quarterbacks or wide receivers more, and at first he said quarterbacks number one, with wide receiver a close second, because with the corners it's like, why even test me, which was funny. But then he kind of walked it back a little bit and said offensive coordinators first, because they're the ones coming up with the game plan. And Travis talked about how he feels, as someone on the offensive side of the ball, that it's him going against defensive coordinators a lot, and then obviously the players on the field, but the DC and the coaches, and in Sauce's case, the OCs, really matter. And he wants to go against Andy Reid, who is the best player or best play caller in the game, and he'll get that opportunity this year to do that. That's going to be an exciting matchup to see how he could face against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, the best quarterback and best play caller in the league. And that's what it's all about, right? You want that competitive spirit as a competitor. You want to go against the best, and you want to be the best. So that's kind of the vibe that I got from the interview. It was really good, and you should check it out if you haven't already. But those are my biggest takeaways on it. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Matt O'Leary, and I'll catch you next time.